Hi everyone, this is a podcast for D811 students, and this is a podcast that's focusing specifically on supervision. So this is your second of two MSc conversion psychology modules, and of course you're engaging with different topic area content in this module. But a big part of your studies is the project. And a big part of project work at any level really is some kind of supervision of that project work. So the way I look at project work, psychology is an interesting discipline because you are actually completing data collection and data analysis, which isn't the case for every degree. It might not have been the case for your undergraduate courses, but for this course and for most psychology BScs, in fact, you collect your own data and analyse the data as well. So the way I approach psychology project work, given that it does have that kind of empirical focus, you're collecting your own data, you're analysing your own data, you're presenting some new information about the world. I approach it as an apprenticeship. It's about a research apprenticeship. And that's where the supervision comes in. It's about learning from a more experienced supervisor, a more experienced researcher, as you go on your own route towards becoming an independent researcher, a researcher with independent skills. So, D811 is, let me get this right, sort of a 10-month module, running from the beginning of September through to the beginning of June when you submit your final project report. And you have this allocation of time for supervision over the course of the module. Drawing on my experience of supervising a very large number of projects over about 5 different higher education institutions, it's really important to sort of focus on supervision in the right kind of way. And that's why I approach things in terms of thinking about a really clear timetable for supervision times. So rather than sort of have an arbitrary time to meet here and there and, maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, my approach is to think about quite a structured way of thinking about when we're going to meet and how we're going to meet and the format that kind of leads to those meetings. Clearly there's some flexibility around that where things are, warrant some focus and attention. There's going to be the need to catch up. But there are a number of caveats to that which I'll go through in this podcast. With the timing of supervision, I've gone so far as to, it feels so important that I've produced this supervision timetable document, this project supervision timetable document that you'll all have access to by the time you hear this podcast. So you could actually pause this now if you like and open up that project supervision timetable document so you can see what I'm talking about. So on this document you can see that we've got all the months and weeks pretty much of the D811 presentation that you're taking. In this, I've put the project, the TMA deadlines, so it's clear where the kind of assessment pinch points are in the course of your studies. And I've also put in a scheduled supervision sessions row as well at the top there, with a sense of what kind of supervision sessions will probably make place, and I'll talk a bit about those different types of sessions in a moment. Below that I've put the main project activities. This links up to the TMAs, to the kind of work you'll be doing before each TMA, and it also links up to particularly the EMA, I suppose, the final project write-up report, to keep you on track with all of those different pieces of work. And clearly, these activities align with the different TMAs, with TMA 2, which is your literature review, with TMA 4, which is your project proposal, with TMA 5, which is a bit of a kind of dry run with the reflective blog and poster, and then obviously with the EMA, which is very heavily weighted. 55% of the module mark goes on the EMA, right at the end there. So try and look at your supervision plan with reference to this document, because it should help have a sense of where those kind of pinch points for needing to meet are going to make the most difference. Now, I'll come on to those different supervision sessions in a moment. I just want to talk there briefly about the role of the project forum. So hopefully by the time you listen to this, you've had a chance to look at the forum, and if you haven't, do take a moment now to just find where the project forum is on your Open University splashdown page, on the module, wherever it is you look at things. You'll find the project forum there amongst all the other forums. It's a bit of a strange title, the project forum. It's actually not a forum in a kind of traditional sense, because it's a kind of closed two-way communication between you and me, each of us individually in pairs. So it's me talking to each of you individually. No one else can comment. No one else can see what we're writing about there. We're just having a conversation about your project, working out what scales you're going to use, what the research question looks like. Everything to do with your project goes there. Now, having it that way is really sensible, because it keeps all of the information, all of the conversations we have about your project in one place. It's recorded. Emails are easily lost. Live meetings, valuable though they are, won't be recorded. So it will be a really useful place to have recorded information in text form and attachments and everything else about everything to do with your project work. I can't initiate talk on the posting, I should say, on the project forum. That has to come from you, and I think that's deliberate by design, so that the first post, when ready, is started by you. You come up with the first post, and your first post can be as simple as, Dom, I don't know what I want to do my project on, or it could be as simple as, Dom, I want to do something on well-being at work. And the ideas start up from there. I can help you get closer to a project that's going to be ethically okay, that's going to be practical and deliverable within the time frame of the module studies, and that's, really importantly, going to motivate you and be of interest to you and be something that you want to do for your D811 module studies. Now, I'm talking about the project forum here in this podcast about supervision, because a lot of our work and a lot of our communication can start off and take place in the project forum. It's a bit of a baseline, it's a foundation for other activities. So if we use that space to start developing your project ideas, for scales to go there, for different, for interview schedules, if you're doing a qualitative project, all of that material can be parked there, and then we can build on that in live meetings, whatever those meetings may be. So there's an appeal there to start posting in the project forum when possible, and for that to be the baseline of our other activities. Now, looking at the different sessions, these come in, there are different kinds of encounters we're going to have. There are learning events over the course of your studies. There are different scheduled learning events and drop-in sessions relevant to the type of methods you're ultimately going to be using. So those are kind of the standard things that sort of are relevant to supervision but aren't supervision themselves. But they're going to be important opportunities for you to develop your understanding about things that are related to the project. I'm going to schedule with each of you, ideally, what I'm calling a proactive 30-minute supervision slot before TMA4, which is your project proposal. Well, we need to have a really clear idea of what it is you're developing for your project, what you'd like to do, discussing all the ethical issues around that. and a second proactive meeting before your submission of your EMA itself. Now, those will aim to be about half an hour each, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, and they're deliberately targeted kind of around 2 weeks before the submission for each of those pieces of work. That 2 weeks is deliberate, it's not too early, so that it's not going to be of any use having that meeting for work that's quite a long way off that you might not have started yet, but also not too late, so that you don't have time to draw on the things we discuss in those meetings for that piece of work itself. So those are two of the most important supervision slots we're going to have, and I'll schedule these with you individually closer to the time. There's no point doing it now. We'll do it much, much closer to the time. The other types of meeting are as follows. So a really big part of project work is developing an understanding of the methods you're using. Now, methods, by that I mean two different things really. Methods of data collection, so interviews perhaps if you're doing a qualitative project, a survey method probably if you're doing a quantitative project. But then methods mean something else, doesn't it? Methods of data analysis. And methods of data analysis might be thematic analysis of the textual data produced by your interviews if you're doing a qualitative project. Data analysis could also mean, if you're doing a quantitative project, a correlational analysis followed by a multiple regression analysis of your survey data, of the numerical data produced by your surveys on Qualtrics, which we'll talk about somewhere else, if you're doing a quantitative project. So there's a lot of, developing understanding of different methods going on with your D811 projects. For that reason, partly, I want to bring you together in group supervision sessions where possible. That's going to be really valuable because you're going to hear each other's queries about how things are going, about what we mean by, survey data, about what we mean by developing good interview questions and that kind of thing. You're going to be able to come together and talk about that in a kind of shared environment where you're collaborating with each other. You're perhaps just collaborating through listening to each other and hearing each other's queries and hearing my responses and hearing the discussion that develops from there. But supervision is most effective when it's got some kind of collaborative climate to it. It also massively democratises these encounters, rather than it just being you and me in closed communication in the project forum, you and me on an online meeting. There's different stakeholders who are all vested and interested in supporting each other in a community of practice. I'm suggesting that there are going to be about 4 or 5 of these that each of you will attend over the course of your studies. And again, I'll schedule these based on times that work well for all of us. And these can be, I don't know, it depends on the nature of the session. I imagine between, half an hour and an hour long, I'd imagine each of these group supervision sessions. And you can see from the project supervision timetable that I've added suggested times for these group supervision sessions. And you can see from looking at where they are, and that's a G representing group supervision sessions on the, 4th row down on this table. You can see that they're kind of deliberately put in place before assessment, so that you have a good understanding of what you're going to be doing. I've stacked a lot of these group supervision sessions in late April, early May, and one right at the end of May, quite deliberately and quite clearly, to support understanding of analysing your data and writing up your project report so that you've got the maximum amount of support for that crucial period. Notice that the other two, the other sort of main contact time is weeks 2 and 3 of February, when we'll have group supervision sessions specific to the methods you're choosing. So one for survey students, one for qualitative students, etc. And then there'll be that proactive meeting as well, that one-to-one where we can build on things that we talked about in the group supervision session. And all of that will be in the lead up to submitting TMA 4, which is your project proposal, which is the gateway to starting data collection. So, project forum, learning events, proactive one-to-one supervision slots, group supervision sessions. These will be the majority of the supervision contact time. I'm happy to schedule, in addition to those, individual meetings where you and me discuss things. But where we do that, I want you to send me a really clear sense of what you want to cover in those meetings. And I want them to draw specifically on things we've talked about in the project forum and things we haven't been able to resolve in our emails, on the project forum, wherever it may be. And this is important so that it's time well spent for everyone, so that they're focused on addressing key things that we need to focus on. The other main session should cover most of our queries and contact time, and we'll do a lot of work in the project forum, of course, but I'm happy to schedule individual sessions as well where needed, provided that they're led by you and provided that they have a clear agenda. Okay, so those are the different approaches to supervision, and hopefully you can see from that there's a really carefully thought through, well organised, substantial set of support there for your project work. You're not alone in your project work. You're there working with me as your supervisor. It's a research apprenticeship. Whichever track you're going down, survey, experimental, qualitative, there'll be the right kind of support there. And you'll have that, you're not alone also in the sense that you'll have that support from each other. You'll be in that environment in those group supervision sessions and in learning events as well, where you're hearing each other's queries, you're working through different aspects of where you are at that point in your project work. Okay. I think the last bit, just to touch on briefly in this podcast, is around availability. So obviously I need to keep a clear timetable with this. I'm not available all the time. I have day work that I'm working on. I only work at particular times of the week. So the great majority of the supervision time will be Monday to Thursday between 4 and 7 p.m. I'm happy to make some exceptions to that, but they need to be carefully planned in advance, and I will expect mainly to work within that kind of availability. Similarly, I need to know your availability. So bearing in mind my availability, please can everyone let me know around 4 preferred slots, 4 days and times that will work well for you for those group sessions, that will work well for you for individual support sessions, including those proactive sessions that we're going to set up. I will schedule the group sessions based on what you tell me about your availability, based on what you tell me about your preferred days and times. So please have a really kind of careful think through what's going to work best for you. Think about what's happening for you over the course of the next 10 months. We all have busy, complicated lives in different domains of work and non-work. So have a think about what's going to work well for you, and with that information I will set up our meetings accordingly. So if you could email me those 4 preferred days and times, that's one of your actions coming out from this podcast. I've put this in an email as well, but it's useful just to underscore that here too. Okay, I think that's everything about supervision. Please do email me with any questions at all about supervision. And just to say, I'm really looking forward to supervising your projects. You're all going to do different projects, but they'll have lines of similarity. You'll be following the same spec, ultimately. You'll all be doing, a D811 project, which has particular, requirements. It can't be anything It's 5,000 word long project report for a start. That's going to be something similar to all of your project work. But they're all going to be different. They're all going to have different areas of focus. You're all going to have slightly different approaches to data collection, to data analysis. And it's an absolute privilege to support them. Research is a passion of mine, and I'm looking forward to learning all about the projects you're planning to do. As with everything, please email me any queries about supervision, and I hope this podcast has been helpful to explaining the supervision setup on D811.